Done my fair share of podcasts.
How are we doing tonight? We are live. Best bets, week 3 with Andy Lack. 4th and Inches, kind of a quasi name. We'll see where things go. But I really just wanted to talk about the NFL board this week. Spreads, you've been absolutely killing it, Andy. Are you a golf handicapper or are you an NFL handicapper? The people want to know.
First of all, how's it going, buddy? Thanks for having me on. We clearly don't talk enough, so I feel like it's been ages. But so I've been betting football way longer than I've been betting golf, and I know that I've kind of made my hay on Twitter through golf, and my podcast is a golf podcast. But I love the NFL, and I have been into it for a very long time, and I approach it very differently than I approach golf betting. I think I just have a very different strategy, which I'm sure we can talk about at some point, but I love it. Yeah. I'm going to continue to post my NFL picks for anyone that's interested. And if people have been listening and following, which I know a few people have, then we've had a pretty great start to the season.
Yeah, no, I think the NFL betting, there's so many different aspects and narratives to go around things, and there's line movements, and there's so many different aspects that make a play right. And a lot of the times it seems to work out because these lines are so sharp. There's so much money on these games. Vegas is too good. You need to have some sort of an edge and pick your spot. So what strategies have you been using the first 2 weeks of the season, and what sort of things have you been looking at to find edges in these games?
Okay. All right. So I'll let you in on a couple things. So as I already alluded to, I look at the NFL. My strategy for the NFL is very, very different than golf. With golf, I don't listen to anybody. Like, there is no one in the world that can talk me on or off someone. I support and listen to my friends' podcast because they're my friends. But with golf, I do my numbers thing, and I trust my numbers, and that's how I do it. And I like my process, and it's worked for me long term. With the NFL, it's the opposite. I take in a ton of information. It is a very communal exercise for me. I have a couple of people that I really trust that I bounce things off of, and I'm always talking and digesting information with people, whether it's listening to certain podcasts or talking to some of the people that I really trust on Twitter. For the NFL, like, it's just a game. Like, it's so much about timing and like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like situations and spots, and like, I don't really look at numbers as much as the way that I do with golf. I look a lot at situations and spots, and I think it's really important, like beating the closing number and betting. I tend to bet really early in the week as well. I think it's really important. If your simple strategy is let me beat the closing number, I think it's a pretty good barometer of if you're good at betting the NFL. If you bet games on Sunday evening and 65% of the time or something like that, the number that you bet is better than the closing number, you're generally pretty good at betting the NFL. That's just a rule I try and live by. So again, for me, the NFL, it's a lot of consulting with my people. It's a lot of taking in information. It's a lot of paying attention to injuries and defensive injuries that people don't think about, and looking at the schedule and looking at, like, is this a look ahead spot? Like, is this a letdown spot? Like, stuff like that is the type of stuff that I really try and focus on.
Yeah, no, definitely. And those are all great things. And I think that a lot of the time public perception and last week's game plays a lot into the line. And in the NFL, you really have to think, what is the average public square thinking, and kind of go opposite of that. So without further ado, let's get into it. Thursday Night Football, Panthers, Houston. The line is about 8 right now, over under 43. I'm thinking you take the trend of these overs in these primetime games, and you just take the over in this game at 43. That's my initial lean. But the Panthers have 2 good wins against pretty easy teams. Houston just lost Tyrod. It seems like Houston would be the play, and they would blow them
Yeah, I don't have, this is definitely not a game that I'm going to bet. My lean would be with the points and the Texans. Obviously, the Texans are starting Davis Mills, which is never fun. And I think I would probably look more towards the total. It's been bet down a little bit. The Panthers defense has been really good. They've already had 10 sacks, 3 interceptions. They've been getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback, which isn't a great sign for Davis Mills. But I still think it's far too many points for me to want to lay with the Panthers. But at the same time, like I'm not going to back Davis Mills in this spot. It's a pass for me, but I'd probably lean Texans.
Yeah, it's not a game that people, if there was no betting, no one would watch this game. This doesn't seem like an amazing primetime game on a Thursday night, but I think it will be fun, and that's why, always like to bet on the primetime games on Thursday. So my lean, and I'll probably bet it, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the trend of these primetime games going over for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but they just seem to be going over recently. So next game I want to look at is Cards-Jags. Cardinals are 7.5-point favorite. The over-unders sitting at 52. I think the Cardinals are probably one of the teams that people are most impressed by these first 2 weeks, and people are really very high on the Cardinals given their first 2 performances of the season.
Yeah, again, this is a pass for me. I don't know. Laying 7 with the Cardinals, like, I know the Jaguars are 0-2, but there's been another thing that I forgot to talk about that I look at a lot. I look at quotes a lot. Big quotes guy in the NFL. It's better than you'd think coming out of the Jaguars locker room. And I think bad teams with lame duck head coaches will quit sometimes, but I don't think that bad teams with brand new head coaches who have a ton to prove and a young roster is just going to fold and be completely non-competitive for the rest of the season. They actually looked better in week 2 against what I think is a pretty good Broncos team. And that all came in spite of the fact that Trevor Lawrence didn't play well at all. And he's only going to get better. That was a good Broncos defense too. So, I don't know. I think I would probably lean 7. This is another one of those situations where if you like the Cardinals, you have to bet them at -7. And if you like the Jaguars, you have to bet them at 7.5. I would encourage everyone to shop around. But I'd probably lean Jaguars in this spot, even though it's ugly. I bet a ton of underdogs, Brian. Like I'm like,
no, it's good to lay points. I mean, they've been killing it. So I totally understand laying the points with the underdogs. One thing I will say about the Cardinals, I do like them teased down. I think they're a pretty good teaser spot, and the best time to do teasers is when a team is a 7.5-point favorite. So I will be teasing the Cards in some respects because they're not losing this game. I think they cover the teaser. I think you match it up with another 6-point favorite, and so I like the Cards in a teaser for that game. That is what I'm looking to do with this game in particular. Next game I'm looking at is Titans-Colts. Titans coming off an excellent overtime victory against the Seahawks. Colts, without their quarterback, I don't think Wentz is playing. This seems like the public perception about these two teams are very much on the opposite sides of each other, and that people are going to want to bet the Titans. For what I'm looking at right now, they're getting 73% of the bets and even more money. So do you have any take on this game?
Yeah, I bet the Colts +5.
Dogs, dirty dogs.
Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. This actually may be one of the ones that I end up losing value on long-term. I looked at Carson Wentz's injury on Sunday night, and I was a little bit more optimistic that he was going to play this week. I still think the status is uncertain. I know that it came out today that Brissett was starting for the Dolphins, but I haven't seen any news today on who it's going to be for the Colts. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I know as of now. Obviously, if Jacob Eason starts for the Colts, that line is probably going to 7, if not crossing 7. And that is a poor situation for me. I also do believe that if Carson Wentz does start, it gets closer to 3. My reasoning with this is it like, I know that some of it depends on Wentz, and if Wentz doesn't play again, I'm not going to get the value here with the closing number, but I look at the Colts and like I thought they looked really good against the Rams, despite Wentz not even playing that great. They were twice inside the Rams 5-yard line and didn't come away with any points. They had first and goal on the 1-yard line and they got nothing. So they easily could have won that Rams game. And I think the Rams are way better than the Titans, who can't really stop anybody. So my logic was I think there's a little bit of a misperception about this Colts team. I think they're a little bit better than people think, and it's a divisional game. These games always seem to be tight in division. So my initial lean was with the Colts, but I'll be honest, if Jacob Eason starts, it's probably not a good bet that I made.
No, I totally understand. And that's what I was thinking with the public perception about the Colts and the Titans. They're kind of in opposite directions. People see the injury news about Carson Wentz, and they said they're not going to do anything. But I do think that in the NFL, there is some merit in fading teams coming off an emotional overtime game. So if the line moves up, and again, these divisional games always seem to be close no matter how different these teams are because they know that so well. I think there could be some value in laying the points with the Colts. Hopefully the line moves up a little bit. So I think this is an interesting game. Ravens-Lions. The reason I think it's interesting is because both these teams are coming off primetime games, so their public perception and what people think about them are more influenced than just some regular game that the average viewer might not want or watch. So Ravens just beat one of the best teams in the NFL. The Lions just got beat pretty bad in the second half, not the full game, against the Packers. This seems like people are going to just run and bet the Ravens for this game, given what they saw on the last two games.
Yeah, I'd probably take the Lions. It went down, right? Like it was 9. It opened at around 9.5, and now I'm seeing. Let me see. I think it's 8 in some places, and I really try and look at like a lot. Like there's a couple books in Vegas that primarily take a lot more sharp action, like the Circa and the Westgate. So those are kind of what you would call a leading indicator book. And if a leading indicator book has a line a little bit lower, then that means that that's probably the sharper side. So for example, like you can get the Lions +9 at DraftKings, but it's +8 at the Circa and Westgate, and the Circa and Westgate take a lot more sharp action and a lot more respected money than DraftKings do. So I think the Lions is probably the side. With that being said, it's not a game that I'm running to bet by any means. I mean, I have my concerns about the Ravens defense. I think they're a lot worse than I thought heading into the season. They've allowed 30 points in back-to-back games. It's got to be the first time in years that they've allowed 30 points in back-to-back games, and does feel like a little bit of a flat spot for the Ravens coming off that huge win over the Chiefs. So I think the Lions are the side that I would assume is clearly getting the sharp support, but it's not something that I would bet myself.
Yeah, no, I think the Lions would be the better play given their past two games, and I think the Ravens are due for a little bit of a letdown. And when I initially saw this game, I thought points. I thought this would be a bit of a high-scoring game. I definitely lean over, and I like the over in this game, but of course, it's at 50. It's not like a low number, so I think Vegas knows. I like the over. I lean over in this game, and I think you might as well take the underdog in this spot. So next game, Bills football versus the football team. In my opinion, the Redskins couldn't stop the Giants. The Giants put up 30 points on the Redskins. The Bills have such more an explosive offense, and you see what they did last week with the Dolphins. I just think the Bills put up a lot of points on this Washington football team. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, my initial lean would be the Bills. This one actually opened at -9 and has been bet down all the way to 7.5, which I think is probably closer to where the line should be. I mean, Heineke looked pretty good against what is a fine Giants defense. And, I think Washington's probably the side here again, not to continue to back all these underdogs, but favorites are 11-21 against the spread this season. That's only 34%. And yes, you could say that regression is possible, but it's still only week 3. Regression in those situations tends to happen a little bit later in the season. So I actually still think that a lot of these games, like the underdog, is probably the better play while we're working out some of these teams and trying to figure out who these teams are. I'm definitely more inclined to take points. to speak to what you said about, were you saying, remind me what you think, you're like the over.
I think that I like the Bills team total over. I don't know what it is. I like the Bills team total over, and I just like the Bills. I think that at the end of the season last year, the Bills were just a covering the spread machine, and they kept covering these games. And I don't want to look back on the early part of this season, and the Bills I know they lost week 1. I think that was actually good for them. I think that the Bills have a very good against the spread record this year, and I just think that the Bills are a decent play, and I just think that they are going to put up a lot of points on this football team. So that's my take on the game.
Are you gonna? Well, first of all, I do agree with you. I think the Washington defense is overrated. I thought that they were overrated coming into the season. I still don't love laying this many points with the Bills because they have such a difficult time running the ball, which is what you need to do when you have a lead to cover big spreads. So maybe you found the second leg of your Cardinals teaser. Although I'm telling you right now, one of these teams is going to kill a bunch of Survivor seasons. One of these teams, whether it's the Jaguars or Washington, the Ravens will be a popular Survivor pick. Everyone's going to pick Denver over the Jets. I'm betting the Jets in that game. So one of these teams is going to ruin it for everybody. But
of course, we're due for some big game and some. So next game, I'm trying to give the square perception of this game. My square perception of Saints Patriots is you take the Saints, like no question. I think that the easy thought in this game. Oh, dude, Petey's in the chat, Andy.
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
Let's go Jets.
Is Petey a Jets fan?
Petey loves the Jets. Pete, huge Jet fan.
Wow. I like the Jets this week. I really do.
I can't wait to get to that game. I think the square play. So my logic is so obvious to take the Saints, so you take the Patriots. Like that's how I'm thinking about this game a little bit. Like so, it doesn't really make sense that the Patriots are laying 3. So there's obviously a reason for that. And I'm going to say bets right now are pretty even. Right now, bets Patriots are getting 56% and Saints are getting 44%. So I think it's a little split. So maybe I'm wrong.
Yes. So Patriots, I think, are the side here. The Patriots are on my short list. I haven't bet them yet. Part of the reason that I haven't bet them is that they opened at a pick'em on Sunday night, and I do a lot of my betting on Sunday night, and I really missed. I'm so bummed that I missed getting them at a pick'em. They were even at minus 1.5 for a little bit, and then you wake up Monday morning and it's 3s across the board. The thing that you have to keep in mind with the Saints, and this is kind of another thing that I like to think about a lot with NFL handicapping, but like the Saints haven't, the hurricane situation with the Saints, like they haven't been home since the beginning of August. Week 2 of the preseason was the last time they were in New Orleans. Their coaching staff has been out with COVID on their offensive side. Like the Saints team, it's just a lot for them to overcome over the past couple of weeks. And you kind of see that bear out. Alvin Kamara had 5 yards on 8 carries last week. The blocking was terrible in that game. They didn't have any of their offensive coaches. Jameis Winston looked more like Jameis Winston, and the Saints were just completely out of sync all game. So I think Patriots is probably where I would lean. I haven't pulled trigger yet because I know I'm not getting the best number, but push comes to shove, I think I probably will end up on Patriots minus 3.
I'm going to take Patriots minus 3 just because it's the opposite of the square initial thing. So I'm trying to use that strategy more this year.
Don't you think that people are going to be down on the Saints coming off that blowout loss?
Yeah, but I think people are really high on them after the week 1 performance, and I don't think that people are like, the Patriots are so good. I don't think that people think that yet. They very well could be. What are your perceptions of the Patriots this year overall? Like, how do you think they wind up for the season? Where do you think they rank? What are your thoughts on the Patriots?
I think the Patriots are good. I liked them before the season. I didn't bet them over their season win total, but I think when I did my season-long projections at the beginning of the year, I had them at 10-7 or 11-6 and a playoff team. So I think the Patriots are good. I think the Saints are good too. Like I had the Saints at 9-8. But I think the Patriots are a better football team. Mac Jones has been in. I think Mac Jones is going to continue to get better. I know his stats are going to jump off the page, but he's looked pretty poised and composed in there. And I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on. So I'm pretty high on the Patriots long term. And I think this is a pretty good spot for them, especially when you factor in all of the chaos that's been going on with the Saints recently.
All right. I like Pats. Let's do it. Your boy, Jeff Feinberg, game of the week. Chargers laying 7.5 against the Chiefs. I'm going to say my initial, I just think you just take the Chargers. The Chiefs are historically not a good against the spread team. I think the Chargers are actually pretty impressive given their first 2 games. I think Dallas is really good. I think it's okay that they lost that game. And I just don't really see the Chiefs covering the number divisional game here. I like Chargers.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a tough one for me, man. I've gone back and forth a couple of times. It seems like there's been more money coming in on the Chargers, which was, again, a little surprising to me because my initial lean would be that the Chiefs coming back home after a loss, like that would be a very, very public side. But as you kind of alluded to, the Chiefs have not been good against the spread. They've actually had a really difficult time covering margins like this. And this is going back over a pretty large sample size to last year. The thing I'd keep in mind, like the Chargers, they have no home field advantage at all. So like they're always on the road. Like that, I live in LA. Feinberg is the only Chargers fan that I know, and I've lived in LA for 5 years. So I think they're more used to an away crowd than any other team, and I don't think going into Arrowhead is going to be as big a deal for them as it is for other teams. But it's tough for me. I think I'd probably lean Chargers as well, just because I think this game is good. I think this game is going to be high scoring. And when it's high scoring, generally the team that has the ball last wins, and the game it's hard to cover 7 points when it's like 42-35. You know what I mean? So just based on the numbers, you'd want to go. You probably want to take the under if you think it's going to be high scoring.
Yeah, so I'm taking the Chargers, and I'll probably take the over. I'm fine with that. I like that bet.
You could parlay them together because I think Yeah,
maybe a little. I don't like teasing same games. Next game, stinky, horrible game. Giants, Falcons. Giants are 3-point favorites. I mean, what is going on? I'm not betting this game. I'm just saying I'm not betting it. We can talk about it, but I'm not betting it because it's just too stinky and it's just horrible, and I don't want to bet it. But what do you have any thoughts on this horrible game?
I think the Giants are terrible. I think they've been I knew they were going to be terrible. I hammered the under on their season wins. I hope they continue to lose as a Giants fan. I think my target date for Gettleman getting fired is Thanksgiving. So I hope the faster that if we just keep piling up these losses, the faster we can get him out of here. But this is the type of game that the Giants would win. With that being said, I think it should still be a pick 'em, even though the Giants are at home. I would definitely lean the Falcons plus 3.5, but I'm not going to be betting this game either.
Okay, we're not betting it, but it's just a stinky game. Just don't waste your time. I don't know. Bears, Browns. Browns -7 against the Bears. Over under 47. Justin Fields is starting for the Bears against a Browns team that a lot of people had some really high expectations on going into the year and have had a decent start to the season. You have any thoughts on this game? My initial thought, I don't know if the Browns cover that big of a number, so I lean Bears, but I can be kind of convinced either way. I do like the Browns, and I do think that they have a great season, and I would hope that they would win this game. I'm not sure about covering the 7 points.
Again, this is not a game that I'm going to be involved in. It's Justin Fields' job now, which I think is going to make Bears fans very happy. He did not look good, in my opinion, whatsoever against the Bengals. The Bears really won that game because they got an interception return touchdown and their defense played really well. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with Justin Fields. Baker did get a little banged up on Sunday too, but he still didn't miss a snap. And Jarvis Landry's out now too with a MCL injury. And I don't know if Beckham's going to play again. So without Landry and OBJ, it's kind of a dink and dunk offense. So I would probably lean the under would be my favorite play in that game, but don't really have a strong opinion on the side.
All right, Bears team total under. That's the bet
Like
for the
that.
game.
Yeah,
I don't,
I like
that's
that.
fine. All right, we're moving. Bengals, Steelers. Steelers feel like maybe they should be. It should be maybe like a 5-point spread, but it's 3. Where are you on the Bengals 2 games into the season with Joe Burrow? Have you been a little bit impressed by them? Do you think that they're worse than the public perceives? What are your thoughts on the Bengals?
It's really interesting to me how this line's gone down. It's like 3 across the board now, right? And it opened at 5. Yeah, so somebody's betting the Bengals. It's not going to be me though. I again, this is another pass for me to answer your question on the Bengals. The Bengals were another team that I was not super high on going into the year. I bet their team total under. I think it was 6.5, and I still feel pretty good about that. With that being said, I do think it's a good explosive offense. Like I was very high on Burrow from a fantasy perspective. I was very high on Jamar Chase as well from a fantasy perspective. And I do think that the offense can put up a lot of points. And it's tricky with the Steelers as well. Actually, the more I think about it, I think I do understand a little bit why this line's gone down. Like the Pittsburgh has a ton of injuries right now, dude. Like TJ Watt is banged up, and the difference between TJ Watt in the game and not in the game is just completely night and day. Deontay Johnson got hurt. I don't know if Joe Hayden or Devin Bush are coming back either. So, you know, I think I understand why the Bengals are probably getting some more support here because the Steelers are so banged up. But again, it's like, I don't love them in this spot either, and it's probably a pass for me. I guess I'd lean Bengals because of all the injuries on Pittsburgh's side, but it's definitely not a game I'm going to bet.
All right, next game, Broncos Jets. You have alluded to you like the dirty dog in the Jets this week against the Broncos that are getting a lot of praise and people are very high on them. You think the Jets cover the number this week, Andy? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, like I know you're going to have to hold your nose and close your eyes for this one, but the Jets are undisputably the sharp side in this game. Undisputably the sharp side in this game. They are my favorite play on the board. I bet the Jets at plus 11.5. It's now down to 10 at some of the leading indicator books. It's down to 10 at Circa and Westgate, where you still see some 10.5s at some of the more square shops. But at the sharper books, it's down to 10, which is what it should be. It was just, I saw it and it immediately jumped out to me. This is way too many points. And I like the Broncos. This is coming from somebody that likes the Broncos.
This is not a biased take. You think the Broncos suck and they're overrated.
Yeah, I really like the Broncos. Here's an interesting stat for you, Brian. Stat guy Andy, NFL. Teddy Bridgewater, 4th player in NFL history to open the season with consecutive games where he threw 2 touchdowns, 0 picks, and completed 75% of his passes. 4th player in NFL history. Only other guys, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. So Teddy Bridgewater has basically played perfect football for the first 2 games of the season. Now, keep in mind, the Broncos have played the Giants and the Jaguars. So it's not like they've been taking down a murderer's row either. I think this is a tough hill to die on right now. Our guy Zoomer Zach, as Pat would call him, but he was booed off the field at halftime. But I look at some of his quotes and it's like, this is what he said after the game. They should be booing. We didn't play well enough. Our defense gave us a chance to win. We didn't execute. We didn't move the ball. We didn't score any points. We got to do a better job there. He's playing Bill Belichick as a rookie quarterback, right? I think he got tripped up really early. All of his interceptions came early in the game, and it was really hard for him to recover. I think the public perception on the Jets, one of the lines that I always live by, Brian, is no team is as good as their best performance or as bad as their worst performance. And this was the Jets' all-time worst performance that you're going to see. I just think it's too many points. Clearly, the market at some of the sharper books have corrected itself. So, yes, I've hammered the Jets plus 11.5. They are my favorite play on the board.
I love it. I love betting dirty dogs and stinky games, but that's kind of what you have to do because usually what doesn't really make sense to the average person you don't want to bet is usually the better side. So next game, in my opinion, game of the week, Rams, Bucks, basically a pick 'em. Bucks are -1. But
wait, did we do Dolphins Raiders?
No, we didn't. I don't know how I missed that. Dolphins Raiders.
I don't think it's on the board for BetFest.
Oh yeah, it's not on. I missed it then. All right. Dolphins Raiders. What are your thoughts on that game?
I bet the Dolphins.
You like the Dolphins?
Yeah, I bet the Dolphins 4.5 with Jacoby Brissett. Listen, this is a different role for the Raiders right now. They're 2-0. They're fat and happy versus the Dolphins coming off an absolute ass kicking. I mean, the Dolphins were terrible last game. They were 0-3 in the red zone. They committed 3 turnovers, 9 penalties, and obviously Tua's out of the game as well. But that was the worst game that the Dolphins have played since Flores took over as head coach. I don't think Tua's that great. I don't think that the drop-off between Tua is very large at all, and I think the Dolphins are going to bounce back. They still have a very good defense. They've had a takeaway in 24 straight games, and I still wasn't impressed by the Raiders. Like, when TJ Watt was in the game for the Steelers, he did absolutely whatever he wanted on the defensive side of the ball. So to me, that was more of like a bad Pittsburgh offense than a good Las Vegas defense. So I just think Big Ben's very limited at this stage of his career. So I think this is a perfect spot for the Dolphins. Give me the points.
No, I like it, and I think that the public perception about these two teams couldn't be in a more opposite direction. So just what I'm looking at, the Raiders are receiving 92% of the bets.
Hammer the Dolphins. That's trouble.
And the Dolphins, but the money is on the Dolphins. You're getting 8% of the bets, but 21% of the handle. So I'm down. That's just a sharp side. I'm taking it. I'm just betting it. No thoughts. It's just strictly public perception and where the money's at. So I'm down with that. I'm fine.
Brian,
I'm
that's the move, dude. You
have to think a little bit like sharply and not just take the most obvious thing. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast and, get some bets out earlier in the week, not hungover and high on Sunday morning. So I want to, do a little more prep for the week. So the next game, I think it's best game of the week. Rams, Bucks -1, total 56. I think this is an absolutely over game, and that's why the total's so high. So I like the over, but I think this is just going to be an excellent game. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think this is going to be an excellent game, Brian. I'm going to the Ryder Cup, so I'm not going to watch 1 second of it. But I agree. If I was home, I would be watching this game, and I'll probably be following it on my phone a little bit. What's interesting, the money came for Tampa in this game, and it's likely going to continue to come for Tampa. I believe that the Bucks, I believe it was the Bucks, it opened as a pick 'em, right? Or it opened as the Rams opened as a favorite, and now it's flipped, so the Buccaneers are the favorite. I would probably lean Bucks here. I have my concerns about the Rams defense. They could not stop the run against the Colts. Carson Wentz and that Colts offense moved the ball. The Colts, like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about them, they could have easily won that game. So I think, I think the Tampa Bay's defense is a little bit better than the Rams defense right now. So I would probably lean on the side of the Bucks. But the one thing that I would consider that probably is keeping me off them as a play, it might be a huge look ahead spot for the Bucks. They're going to New England next week. And it's Brady's first game playing in New England, first time playing the Patriots since he went to the Bucks. So, it's hard to look past the Rams. The Rams are such a good team, so I don't want to say that the Bucks are looking past the Rams by any means, but I would just sit back and enjoy this one. And my issue with the over, Brian, is I agree there's going to be a lot of points, but that's high, man. That's a lot. I still feel like 55 is high. If this was I think it opened at 52. If you got in at 52 or 52.5, I'd be in, but 55 is high is my kind of only issue.
Yeah, no, it's high for a reason, and I think that it will be a high-scoring game. But I agree with you. I like the Bucks here. You're not really worried about covering points. You're just who is going to win this game, and you just take the experienced quarterback that is just an all-time. So I like the Bucks here. I agree with you. Next game, Seahawks, Vikings. Oh, everyone's taking the Seahawks. Everybody is taking the Seahawks here. The line seems too short to the average person, and they are getting – they're getting 82% of bets. So I think that most people really want. And what is the line right now? 2? It's like 1.5, 2 of right now.
Yeah, I probably.
You like the Vikings? Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's just I do. No,
you're starting to get to know how I look at things.
The line shouldn't be this low. Therefore, you take the Vikings.
Yeah, there's something off with that one. And Brian, I think we talked about this a little bit before.
You like the Seahawks to start the season.
I love the Seahawks. I bet them to win the Super Bowl. I bet them to win the NFC. But this is a spot situation. And I mean, like Minnesota, they're an 0-2 team traveling home. Not to be hyperbolic, but I think their season is kind of on the line here. I think that teams that start 0-3 have around a 3% chance of making the playoffs. And I know that teams that start 0-2 have a 10% chance. So you don't really want to go 0-3, obviously. So I think that this is a Mike Zimmer, I think, is already on the hot seat. I think this is a giant game for the Vikings. Keep in mind, like they're 0-2, but one play or so in both of those games, and they could be 2-0. They missed. It wasn't like they missed a 55-yard field goal to lose last week. No, they had a 37-yard field goal to win that game, and the kicker missed it. That's the only reason why the Vikings are 0-2 and the Cardinals are 2-0. So I think the Vikings are probably a little bit better than their 0-2 record. I think they need this one a little bit more. So I'd probably, I haven't gotten there yet, but I'd probably take the Vikings in this spot. I would.
No, it's a really interesting game. It's a really interesting line. And then if the Seahawks started 2-0 with 2 easy victories, I think this changes things. But I think the fact that the Seahawks lost a heartbreaker in OT against a pretty good Titans team, people are thinking this is kind of a must-win game for them after a devastating loss. So it's like it's easy to talk yourself into both sides of this game. And with the spread so low, it's like, but the sharper that, like, if not the square play would be the Vikings, in my opinion. So Sunday Night Football, Packers Niners. Packers are -3, and no. The 49ers are -3.5. Total is 49. Packers coming off a pretty good victory at the Lions, but obviously started off very poorly. Everyone's betting the Packers, from my understanding. They're getting a lot of the bets. And 49ers, coming off a pretty average win over the Eagles that I think people aren't really that high on. People are like, this is the ultimate, like, why are the 49ers favored in this spot? So can you tell me why the 49ers are favored in this spot, Andy? Because it doesn't seem like they should be.
Well, I mean, they're really banged up, Brian. Like, they've got cluster injuries in the secondary. There's no Jason Verrett. They just had to sign Josh Norman, who's been washed for years. Garoppolo didn't look great. The Eagles had 2 touchdowns that got called back. So the Eagles really could have stole that game. I don't know why they're favored. It's at home. The 49ers have they remember these 2 teams played each other in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, and the Niners just absolutely dominated them. So there's that revenge angle for the Packers as well. I'd lean Packers with you as well. What's interesting to me is this is the thing that you kind of have to look at is, like, clearly everyone's betting the Packers, but the line isn't doing anything, right? Yep. So somebody's supporting the Niners. Like, actually, what's interesting is I'm starting to see 3s.
Yeah, no, I think since this is Sunday Night Football, it's the perfect wait until right before and see where the money is coming in and see where the line is moving and wait to bet that. Because if you thought for 2 seconds about the Sunday Night Football game against the Chiefs and the Ravens, you would have just bet the Ravens. There was just too much money and too much exposure to the Chiefs, and the line wasn't moving, and therefore you take the underdog. So I'm obviously betting Sunday Night Football. You have to bet Sunday Night Football to save the week, regardless, either way. So this game, I'm waiting to see where the money is coming in right before kickoff and seeing where the line moves, because I'm just going to align myself with the sharp money on this Sunday Night Football game.
I think that the Packers are the side.
Okay.
I do. I look at some of the leading indicator books, and they're coming down to 3. I don't think I'm going to touch it, but I'd probably lean Packers.
All right. We got through Sunday. 1 game left. Dallas, Eagles. Dallas -4, divisional game. Dallas has had a really good start to the season, in my opinion. And I think they're a very good football team. And the Eagles haven't shown too much, but, these divisional games, these primetime games, they always seem to be very close. Do you think that the Cowboys are due maybe for a little bit of a letdown here?
Yeah, this is tough. This is another tough one. I think I'd lean Cowboys, Brian, in this spot. I think I'd lean Cowboys. I think that Dallas's defense is not as bad as people think it is. I mean, they drafted 6 players on the defensive side in the top 150 picks of last year's draft. So they have guys on their defense now. It's not as bad as I think the perception is. The Eagles also lost Brandon Graham. That's a huge injury. He's probably their best defensive player. The reason why the Eagles are frisky this year is because of their offensive and defensive lines, and losing Brandon Graham is going to hurt. They also lost Pro Bowl guard Brandon Brooks on their offensive line as well. So if the Eagles start losing battles in the trenches, they might be a little bit closer to that bottom feeder that some people thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. I think the Cowboys are a little bit better than people think. I think if they can overcome some of their coaching mishaps and stuff like that, like I don't trust Mike McCarthy for shit, but I would probably lean Cowboys in this game, but it's not a strong lean. I'm not going to get to the window with it.
Yeah, no, my initial thought about this game after the first 2 games of the season, I'm very impressed with the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm not really that high on the Eagles, and I think that the Cowboys are out to prove something this year, and I think a Monday night game where everyone's watching, I do think they cover the number, and I certainly lean Cowboys in this game, even though it's divisional and even though it's a primetime game. I just think that the Cowboys are going to have an excellent season. I'm not saying that's going to translate into, the NFC Championship for them, but I think that they can put together an 11-7 year and get a lot of wins. So I think this will be a pretty easy spot and win for them. So we got through the board. It was a great podcast. I'm glad we did it. I'm looking forward for you to put out your card with all these dogs on it tomorrow. And I appreciate you coming on the pod. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoy talking football. It's definitely different than golf, but it's almost like easier to talk about because there's only X games.
Can we do like 5 minutes on the Ryder Cup?
Yeah, no, we're doing. I was gonna say I wanted to do Ryder Cup, but
I've got a couple takes for the Ryder Cup that as the week has progressed a little.
Yes, because you did your podcast with Stevie Bamford, and now you want something in audio that you could look back on and say, I said this or I said that. So I like it. I'm down to talk Ryder Cup, and hopefully. Coach, what are you talking about? You didn't say anything, Coach. What's up? We love you, and we're so happy to have you. And now
looking at any of the comments.
Yeah, I should have said that to start. But Clark was in here. Mad people were in here. It was chill.
Oh, my man.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk Ryder Cup. I could not be more excited. When are you flying out?
I'm flying out crack of dawn on Friday morning. So my flight is at, I think, 6:30 a.m. I'm going to have to get to the airport at around 5. May pull an all-nighter on Thursday night. I land in Chicago at like noon. And then it's an hour and a half drive from Chicago to Whistling Straits, meeting my buddy who Jack. I'm meeting Jack. Yeah, meeting Jack is flying in from Oklahoma. And my dad, and we're meeting in Chicago, and then we're driving. So I should get to the course by around 1:30 p.m. on Friday. The one thing that I wanted to say, we don't need to do a ton on the Ryder Cup.
No, I want to talk.
Okay. All right. We could talk Ryder Cup for a little bit. I don't like how confident you are on the U.S. side, Brian. I think this is going to be a fucking dogfight. I really do. I think this is going to be an absolute battle. People are really confident in the U.S. And look at the weather. Look at the weather. The one thing that the U.S. cannot control is the weather. And it's gusting up to 30 miles per hour right now. You're already starting to see some of the images and the videos of how much it's blowing over there. I think this is going to play a little bit more. The windier it gets, the harder it gets. I think it's going to play a little bit more into a Matthew Fitzpatrick and a Shane Lowry and a Tyrrell Hatton's hands. And I don't know if the course advantage that we believe that the U.S. have is as great as some people want to make it. If this was played in a dome, Brian, I think that the U.S. would win in a rout. But it's not played in a dome. It's played on fucking Lake Michigan. And that's the issue with it.
No, I totally understand. I don't think that if the weather plays that way, the Americans will have as big of an advantage as they would on just like a classical tree-lined golf course with minimal elements from the weather. And it's just like, but obviously, I mean, it's known that the Euros play well and they're more used to playing on windier, more like this type of course. So I think that the weather definitely could play into their advantage and minimize some of just the absolute like firepower that America has. So I understand, but you're not going to bet like the Euros like at plus 200. Like,
no,
I mean,
no.
I'm not like throwing mad money on them like minus 200. Like I just put like $100 on them to win by 1-3 or 4-6. And I think, Andy, I'm a content creator. Like, I'm not going to be like Riggs and just be like, oh, just bet the Euros. Like, I'm just confident in my squad, man. I think the American wins. I have to say something. So I think that they do. But I understand your concerns with how cold I am. I don't want to mush the American team, But also, Tim Andercuss says Euro will win. So that has to mean something.
Watch out for Bernd Wiesberger, too. Yeah. I think that the bet that you just mentioned is the way to go. If I haven't made any bets right now, I'm probably what I don't want to have to root for anything other than the U.S. winning. At the same time, I'm going to be there. It's so hard to lay that amount of juice, but I don't want to have to worry about, I have this ticket on Spieth to be top point scorer. So I actually hope that DJ pushes. I just want the U.S. to win. I wrote about what I would bet in like a Golf WRX article and stuff. But to me, it's the U.S. for me. I have a little bit of hesitation, and I think the smartest way to go about it is, as you mentioned, is 1-3 or 4-6, or betting both at plus money.
Just betting both.
I would be shocked if the U.S. wins in a rout. I would be absolutely shocked if they win by more than 6 points, and that never happens historically in the Ryder Cup as well either.
But this is what I'm talking about with the Ryder Cup. Like, I just have a little bit too many concerns with the European team, and that might be coming from us betting the PGA Tour every week and guys like Fitzpatrick and Fleetwood and Lee Westwood that haven't done anything on the PGA Tour and have been in horrible form. Like, does that just get thrown out the window for the Ryder Cup given the circumstances of the event? And like, it's just a completely different thing. You're not playing stroke play trying to win a tournament at 19 under. You're just trying to win the match in front of you. Like, does the lack of recent form for some of these European guys, is that going to matter? I know it's an unknowable question, but what's your kind of take on that?
My biggest pet peeve is when people are like, oh, he's such a good match play player. And it's like, okay, how this works is like you're trying to get the ball in the hole, right? You're trying to get the ball in the hole in as many strokes as you possibly can. And do you know what strokes gain data is? It's a measure of how you get the ball in the hole. So for all the people that are like, let's throw out all the numbers, let's throw out all the strokes gain data, it's match play, let's just pick Kevin Kisner and Kevin Na because they're good putters. It's like, no, the way that you win, there's actually a great deal of carryover between match play and stroke play. It's actually very quantifiable. And the biggest misconception is that the Euros just pick raw and chemistry. Guys, like, no, they rely a ton on analytics. The reason why the Euros have been so good is because this is what the problem, I think, is, Brian. I think this is the biggest problem. The Euros, they will go to whatever the analytics tell them to do. They don't care about what country you're on. They don't care. Like, they won't bend to any player's ego or drama, and they don't have to worry about like, oh, we have to avoid pairing Bryson and Brooks together. We have to keep JT and Spieth together. We have to keep Xander and Cantlay together. The Euros, they'll just go based on the numbers. What are the best pairings? And I think that's why they do so well in alternate shot as well, because they use the numbers so much and they rely so heavily on analytics. And we're kind of just starting to adapt to that as well. So my biggest concern with the U.S. side is that we're going to get caught in this thing where we're just going to say like, oh, we can't break up these guys. We can't, these guys have to play together. And it's like, that's not how the Euro team thinks. Like the Euro team, they don't have to worry about egos. They don't have to worry about chemistry because everyone's so bought in. Do you get what I'm saying? So they can just go with the numbers.
Yeah. No, but they also don't, like the guys at the top of the like their team, like they're going to have to split up with some worse players. They don't have the luxury of that America has where they can pair two top guys together and it won't completely dismantle their team. So it's really going to come down to how these middle of the pack guys perform because, I mean, in my opinion, I think Rom, Rory, and maybe Victor, I mean, we talked about his Pete Dye concerns, but they're going to have to be excellent. And so is Paul Casey. Like, they don't have any room for error. And if Fleetwood and Fitzpatrick play like they have been playing, like, that's just another reason why I think America's going to win. But that's not a crazy take. I mean, they're minus 200. So it's really interesting how things are going to play out, in my opinion. And maybe Stricker takes the losses from the 21st century and takes some of the side from the Euros, like you talked about, the analytical, like best people together, put them together, it doesn't matter, splitting them up. It's like, I mean, do you want to split up Cantlay and Xander? Like, you obviously have a strong opinion about Xander Schauffele and who he should be paired with, but if the analytics say something different, do you pair two of the best golfers in the world right now?
Yeah, I would do whatever's best for the team. I don't care who Xander plays with. I don't care who any of these guys play with. I would do what's best for the team. Like, the thing that I keep coming back on is, like, to me, like, I don't know if they're going to do this, but, like, Bryson and if you pair Bryson and Colin together, that is a literal cheat code. Like, that is a literal cheat code. If Bryson is driving the ball well, it is unfair what that team can do. But
exactly,
I don't know if they're going to get paired together, right? Like, I don't know if Steve Stricker's going to do that because maybe he doesn't think that Bryson can gel well with Colin, or maybe he feels like he needs to put Bryson with somebody that Bryson has better chemistry with or something like that. Like, these are all problems that, like, if Bryson and Colin Morikawa were European, they'd play together, right? They wouldn't have to factor all of this, like, outside stuff that the U.S. has to do. So, yes, I think one of the things that worries me about the U.S. side is I still trust Patrick Harrington as a captain and the Europeans' analytical approach a little bit more than I do with the U.S. side. I'm worried, and I think they've made vast improvements, right? Obviously, like the fact that they picked Scotty Scheffler for this team means something. It's an improvement in that area. And you ask Steve Stricker in the press conference, and he'll tell you, he's like, yeah, we relied on the analytics more. We thought about course fit. We thought about driving distance. We wanted guys that were longer drivers of the ball. But my concern with the U.S. is I don't know how they're going to end up pairing these guys. And I think there's going to be, I think the Euros are going to still hold their own in alternate shot.
We'll know tomorrow at this time, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's coming out around, I don't know, around in the evening, maybe 8 Eastern or something like that.
That's like, once those come out, are you going to play some bets to start? Because I feel like it's a really important thing to do as soon as they come out, play some bets off like what, but I literally cannot. I mean, we've been literally talking about it for like a month, who these people are going to be paired with, and it's finally coming out tomorrow. And I just honestly could not be more excited because I like alternate shot is so fun. Like,
so fun. It's fun to play.
It's fun to play. We played it one time. And, like, just to see the best golfers in the world, like, play alternate shot when they're just used to play, like, sure play. I cannot wait for alternate shot. Like, I took off from work, like, obviously, like, I just can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. And I said this on my podcast. I'm like, when you're trying to build a Frankenstein best golfer, you put Bryce's driving and Colin's irons together. Like, you just do that. So I hope they do. I think that would just be unbelievable. But yeah, I can't wait, and I can't wait for you to report live from the scene, and maybe you'll see some of your favorite people, and you're gonna meet Noah Lang up, Hundo, right?
I hope so, man. I was
and
just
Kyle
joking.
Porter.
I was just joking with our boy Outright King that if I run into Riggs, I'll fricking deck him in front of my dad. I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that would be good. But I think you got to meet the No Laying Up boys.
Yeah.
And Kyle Porter, your boys. Just like your best boys. And like just say what up to them. And I think that will make the trip for you, honestly.
I hope I run into those guys. I'm really bad in those situations. Like I'm really bad with people. Like I'm really bad with meeting people that I like celebrities. I'm not good. I'm not good. Chris Powers, I did listen. I hate listen to Be Right.
Okay.
Week.
All right. I don't want any of this on the NFL pod. Chris,
okay,
thanks
fine,
for joining, man. We love you. Like, did you just join for the Ryder Cup talk, or like you didn't want to talk NFL? Whatever. I'm done with Chris, honestly, after what happened. But Andy, an absolute pleasure as always. Hopefully, we could do this again and talk the NFL. And I can't wait for the Ryder Cup. I mean, tomorrow's Friday. I'm off Friday. It's going to be excellent. Andy, thanks for coming on. Any closing remarks?
No, thanks so much for having me, buddy. Good luck this week with all your bets, and I'm sure we'll be talking all weekend while I'm there.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. Looking forward to it. Appreciate anyone who checked